Hi team! So it's a new month, got new glasses, and it's time for a new monthly reading. So I'm continuing the new theme. If you've been watching the weekly videos, you're going to recognize this deck, but I recently obtained the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot. Still got to film that walkthrough for y'all, but it's coming, I promise. Alright. So this is going to be a monthly reading for all signs. My weekly readings, I do sign specific. I pull a card for each of the signs and go through that way. But the monthly readings, I go ahead and tap into messages for the collective. Alright. And like my August video, at the end there'll be a portion where you'll pick either card 1 or card 2 for a little bit more of a personalized reading. So I'm cutting the deck into 3 piles. I'm going to stack it back up. And I'm just going to invite you to join me in setting an intention for this reading. I'm calling on all my teachers, angels, and guides to be with me in this moment and to help me deliver the messages that most need to be heard. May they be gentle and necessary. And I'm inviting you to call in all of your support networks and for them to speak up and to share any insights that they may want to. All right. I'm going to cut the deck again. So, had a little notification that popped up. Very Virgo season. Siri runs my life. It's fine. Okay. So I'm going to draw, let's draw 3 cards. We drew 4 last month, so I'll do 4 actually. All right. So it's interesting because we have 2 of the moon phase cards, which are included in this Pagan Otherworlds deck. So we have the full moon. You can see how shiny and shimmery it is. And then this half moon. We also have the 6 of Swords and the Hanged Man. So let's talk about the Hanged Man first, since it is a major arcana. You know from my other videos, major arcanas are the archetypal energies. They show us this really significant soul work that we're doing. And then the other cards show us how that energy is showing up in our life. So the Hanged Man, which is sometimes called perspective in certain decks, I think Crystal Visions, is that right? Has that one? Or maybe it's, I'm forgetting the name of it. If I think of it, I'll put it in the box below. But I like that as a framing of it because it also removes the gender. But it really speaks to what this card is about, which is about a shift in perspective. You can see in this one, he's kind of bracing himself or themselves against this tree. This is not a card of punishment. It's more of like, if you've ever used an inversion table when you're feeling like, oh, your spine is really compressed or you're just feeling discomfort, laying upside down and using an inversion table will help stretch out your spine. And so think of the Hanged Man as this kind of assumed inversion table that you are undergoing, this process in order to stretch yourself, in order to see things differently, in order to feel back in alignment. And Lindsay Mack, I feel like I reference her all the time. It's just because I love her so much. And her podcast, Tarot for the Wild Soul, did an episode on the Hanged Man a while ago, where she said something to the effect of, Hanged Man energy keeps you there until you're ready to change. It's only once you change that you exit out of this energy. And it is Virgo season. We're now like fully in Virgo season. And there's a real sense of, what are we beginning? What are we moving forward with? What are we trying to do? And it requires us to analyze and to take stock of what's working, what's definitely not working. And sometimes that means, changing our perspective, asking for insights, asking people who, work in the fields that we want to work in. When this card comes up, I like to remind people that sometimes we are the hanged man and sometimes we're looking at them. So sometimes we're the ones whose lives are being sort of turned upside down in a nice way, of course, although sometimes it's a little trickier than others. So sometimes it's our life, and then other times we see someone and their life and the way that they're living makes us shift our perspective. So if, you're a vision board person and you're making a vision board, including photos of maybe some celebrities whose work you really admire or stance on life or humanitarian efforts are really calling to you, looking for a role model or a mentor might be good work to do this month, especially as you're goal setting. Then we have the Six of Swords. So swords are about our thoughts, communications, and beliefs. And this 6 is showing us a real movement. We go from 5s, which are adjustment cards, to the 6, which is like action that's being taken. What I think is really beautiful here is, that's very interesting. There's waves on this side, but not waves on that side. It's almost as if there's something that's happened off frame that's caused like these waves to bump up against the boat. And so some kind of external event or situation is causing this shift in perspective. So this is the shift that's happening, right? And then the Six of Swords is what happens once we've been shifted. So just like I was saying, we stay in this energy for as long as we need to, for as long as it takes for us to be aligned. And the Six of Swords shows us that once we have been changed, we are moving forward. This is letting go of limiting beliefs. This is deciding to look at things totally different and actually putting money where our mouth is. Not necessarily like around actual money, but like taking the actual steps that you need. This sword is being used as an oar, or like people who are gondola drivers or whatever, like that sort of motion, but with a sword. So using your thoughts and saying, okay, this one is strong, this is going to propel me, this is my mantra, I'm going to keep using it to propel me forward. I like to think of this Six of Swords as letting the old ideas that we may be trying to get rid of, instead of shaming ourselves when they come up, using them as like a launch pad and acknowledging them and saying, okay, great, that is a way that I thought before, and I'm going to move forward towards something different. In the Fountain Tarot deck, I'd encourage you to look up the Six of Swords, because the swords are underneath the boat, and it is like a launch pad pushing it forward. But you get to determine when the old thought patterns are poking holes in your boat and are making you go slower than maybe you want to. And when you make that evaluation, you can let them go. This whole Virgo season of just like, okay, processing, analysis, prioritizing, moving forward, like these are really exciting times and really like goal-oriented moments, and just really stepping into your power. I want to talk about the 2 moon phases. So I'm seeing this like half moon as this hanged man. There's this great quote, and if I can find it, I will post it in the box below. But the idea is that we need to experience all of life, like both, happiness and sadness and pain and all of these things. And I am very, very quick to shut down people who like to justify, like, say other people's pain, everything happens for a reason. And it's like, okay, that's not helpful for people who are in pain or have experienced trauma. They get to decide the narrative of their experience and how they're taking it on. That being said, this quote is saying, in order to understand life, we need to experience all of it. And so if we frame it as this, like, okay, I'm trying to experience it all, I'm trying to understand, the gathering of experiences is maybe, a helpful reframing to move forward. But I bring this up because I think of this half moon as being in the in-between. The in-between is something I talk a lot about in the work that I make. I'm a writer, a zine maker, an artist, filmmaker, all of these things. And this idea of what happens in the middle, acknowledging paradox, nuance, the spectrum. It can be extremely uncomfortable to be in the midst of something, especially, kind of like High Priestess energy, especially when we don't have all of the answers. And rarely do we have all of the answers. So I'm thinking of this half moon card as in our monthly reading as showing us that we are in process, and it is about progress and not perfection, which is definitely helpful in this Virgo season. And just moving forward and taking the days that you have a lot of energy and going for it, and not shaming yourself for days where you're really just feeling run down. There are such big shifts that are happening with the collective, like spiritually and mentally, and it takes our bodies time, right, on this third dimensional plane to incorporate those changes and to really let them sink into our bodies. So just being really kind to yourself as we're in this shifting. And then the moon card. Oh my goodness, love that glitter. So if you have been working at all with, moon rituals, and I have been talking about the moon more just because I've been using this deck more. So the full moon is a time to really celebrate what is coming forward, what has happened, what has been manifested, what has been created, what have you had your hand in, and also putting your hand in your heart to work, to bring it forward. So it's kind of, you can think about this hanged man as like a brainstorming session, and once you've figured out what you need to figure out, right, taking the movement to do this. Full moon is really just stepping in and acknowledging everything that you've worked towards. And the moon manifestation cycle is 6 months. So if you look at the new moon, we just had the new moon in Virgo. So September, I guess, October, November, December, January, February, March. So in March, it should be the full moon in Virgo. I'm nervous about my math. But the idea is the seeds that you plant on the new moon 6 months later and the full moon of that same sign is when they'll be manifested. So thinking about the upcoming full moon 6 months ago, what were you thinking about? What were you trying to bring into this world? And are those seeds taking taking root? Are they starting to bloom? You know, what have you been working on? And it doesn't have to even be like that conscious. Like a lot of times I'll look back on my Instagram feed and be like, what was I posting about? Or in my notes section on my phone, I'm like, what am I writing about? And then looking at the themes that I was ruminating on, and then I check in and I say, oh, cool. Well, what do I have to say about X, Y, and Z right now? How do I feel about, you know, this, that, and the other thing now? So taking this, you know, reflection period to say, okay, 6 months ago, where was I? How do I feel about that? And using that as a point of reevaluation to move forward and to make any adjustments that you may need to in order to be more in alignment with your current goals. All right, so I'm using Danielle Laporte's Truthbomb deck. And just like last month, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold up 2 cards. Ooh, that one really wants to be spoken about. Okay. So I'm going to have you hold up these and pick A or B. We're going to take a deep breath. All right. A or B. Start with A. Ruthless Compassion. This is the one that fell out of the deck, which I kind of think is funny. It's just like, boom, bold, like, this is what's up. I see ruthlessness as, like, consistency, like being so consistent in the way that you're showing up for yourself, especially as we navigate this half moon, right, of this in-between, right? How can we hold space for ourselves in the midst of it all? There's also a call to like reevaluate the way that you're giving to other people. Making sure that if you're making any promises this month that you're really upholding them, and making sure that, yeah, you're upholding the integrity of your word, because it feels like that's going to be really important with these connections that you're making, especially any new connections that you're making. Not that you normally wouldn't, you know, be true to your word, but really, really make sure that you're like not promising more than what you can give. And if you need to make a change about a promise or a commitment that you've made, do that, but you need to communicate. And that's ruthless compassion for yourself as well. All right, card B. Authenticity is magnetic. That is very, very true. So for the people who chose this card, part of your work this month is in that shift of perspective, is learning to invest and value what makes you you, right? Definitely a lot of like shame, garbage thoughts about, you know, taking up too much space or whatever, you know, or valuing yourself too much. It may take time for you to recognize that those things are not true, and that you deserve to be valued for who you are, and that when you are more open with people come to understand the real you more, and will value that. You have something really beautiful to offer this world, and the amazing thing is that it's inherent within you. You don't have to try that hard. Just showing up and being yourself draws people nearer to you, and you nearer to your goals. So this month, in this reevaluation and this, you know, process of ridding yourself of negative beliefs that don't aren't true and don't serve you. Really focus that on yourself and give yourself some love. Yeah. Ah, team. Okay, these are great. We had such wonderful cards. And again, this is the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot. Thank you so much for watching the monthly video. I do weekly videos on Tuesdays that are sign specific. And if you are interested in more content, leave me a comment below and let me know what's up. Feel free to like and subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye.